All right. I don't know that we have any public comments. So we'll move right past that to the approval of the minutes from our December meeting. If anyone wants to make a motion,
I'll make a motion to approve the December meeting minutes.
thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Kristen.
Thanks, Kristen. Any discussion, clarifications, edits? All right, hearing none. We'll do this Tony's way. We'll do it backwards. So does anybody object or abstain? All right, hearing none, then the minutes are passed unanimously. Did I get that right, Tony?
You did it right.
All right, perfect.
It's
So
my
moving on.
invention, by the way. I don't know if it follows Robert's rules exactly, but it works.
Perfect. So from there, we'll move right into reports. Do any of our members have reports? All right, then we'll turn it over to Cynthia for the staff update.
Okay, I think I have kind of two main things. The big thing is that we have been working with Thread City Development and some of the restaurants in Willimantic with some restaurants in Mansfield to do a Mansfield Willie Restaurant Week. So it's actually 2 weeks, but we're calling it Restaurant Week, February 21st through March 6th. And the restaurants are being asked to do either some sort of package special or fixed price, a couple of course dinner. From Mansfield, we have Fenton River Grill, excuse me, Dog Lane Cafe and Gansett Wraps confirmed. And I have a couple of yeses, but they haven't put their money in yet. So we'll wait until we announce them. But I spent this afternoon calling restaurants to see if they want to participate. So there is a website and it's called taste2towns.com. So you can go there to see more about what we're doing. And I've been working with Margaret in Ryan's office and Kathleen in our office and in terms of the marketing piece of it. So that's an exciting, I think, project to do between our two communities. And the other piece is on the 4-town initiative. So the Bolton, Coventry, Tallinn, Mansfield initiative. There's a couple of things going on, but probably the most exciting, I think, for this, for the commission right now is a series of seminars that UConn is going to be sponsoring for small businesses. So there'll be 3 or 4, and they'll be focused on how do small businesses bring in interns from UConn? How do they get students that are enrolled at UConn as employees? And then how do they work to get students that have just graduated from UConn to be new employees? And then we are toying, we talked about this a little bit earlier, toying with trying to get the Connecticut Small Business Development Center also involved, although we haven't asked them yet. So, so Kara Workman, who is on the steering committee with Ryan and myself, she really came up with this idea working with Career Services and also in her role as head of events at UConn. So that'll probably be sometime in the late winter, early spring.
Where's the small business center located?
It's on the UConn campus. There is one office there, but I'm not sure where exactly it is right now, Valessa. I think it's moved around a little bit.
Used to be in the business school, I think, right on the first floor there.
Yeah, I think it did, Steve. And it may still be there.
Cynthia, is there anything we can do as the EDC to help disseminate this series? Like, can we get it out to our businesses via the MailChimp list or any of that? Or
yeah, definitely. We definitely want to do that. Obviously we have the downtown stores piece. We have Ryan's newsletter, the town manager's report, press release that we'll do. So we've got a couple of different ways that we can get the word out.
excellent. Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
That's all I had, unless anybody had any other questions.
All right. Business updates, openings and closings. Anybody notice anything over the last month that's new or no longer with us? Yep, go ahead.
Steve, I think Yamato Hibachi is closed. Kathleen was up that way the other day and she thinks that they may be closed. They were up on North Eagleville. I think they might have closed during the, well, we're still in the pandemic, the early part of the pandemic, and then I think they're closed for good.
You know, now that you mention it, I think there was a new sign in that building.
Oh,
I drove by it and I thought I saw something different, and I guess I'll make a note to check it out the next time I'm there. All right. Do we have a housing update from Linda, or we'll table that one for now?
I do have,
great.
yes, I do. I'll probably read most of it, so I'll try to go pretty quickly. So the first one is on Eagleville Green, which is the affordable / workforce housing project that we've talked about before and the commission has supported. So the town submitted an application to the Connecticut Communities Challenge Grant for what is being called the South Eagleville Road Corridor. So that's gap financing and funding for rooftop solar for Eagleville Green. It also includes some extensive pedestrian and traffic calming improvements to South Eagleville Road between Separatist Road and Stores Road. The Mansfield Nonprofit Housing Development Corporation and UConn partnered with the town on this application. And I'm sure Ryan can attest to the great work that Linda did to pull this application together. It was involved, and so I think it was a great team effort. So we fingers crossed on that grant. There's also been some movement with Masonacare. This is the proposed, I'm trying to think, Ryan, is it assisted and nursing home facilities or just assisted and independent? I can't remember now.
Yeah, you know, I've only had a couple of meetings with them since I've been here, and I guess one of the things that they didn't do, which probably would have been helpful for at least for my purposes, was kind of a full walkthrough of sort of their business model. I gather though, I think it's both. I'm not 100% sure.
I think they're starting with independent living, which means that you can do everything yourself, but there are common eating areas and some supports. And then they will progress through assisted living into the potential for dementia living, but I'm not sure whether that's going. The goal was to get something between Glen Ridge and Mansfield Rehab.
Okay. So this is a project for the newbies here that's been around a long time, and Masonacare had bought some property up close to Mansfield Nursing and Rehab, and not much had happened, but they are very supportive of the new Eagleville Green project. And so there has been some movement in terms of their trying to move forward on their development. So I think there's several meetings that are being held, and I know Linda's been involved with some of that. The standard at Four Corners, which is the letter of support that was in your packet, they had another night of public hearing Tuesday night. The applicant asked that the hearing be continued to allow them to make some revisions based on staff and peer review comments. And Linda said the Planning and Zoning Commission has several questions related to the potential for inclusion of solar, electric vehicle charging stations, and how the project would be marketed and promote a living environment that is appealing to a diverse population, not just students. And then the final ongoing project is what's called CMC Stores, which is where the Villa Hills Golf Course is on Route 44, which was the par 3 golf course. The applicant has withdrawn their inland wetlands license for this project based on initial reviews that review comments that led to the need for redesign. And Linda says they expect them to resubmit once their design has been modified. And then they continue to, Linda and other staff of the town continue to meet with prospective residential developers, and that she would update the commission with any more details once applications are received.
Actually, I have a question on every time I drive by the old golf course property in that area, I see there's like I don't know if it's dilapidated, but it's certainly vacant building there. And I didn't know, was that tied to the golf course? Was that like
Yeah.
a tavern, clubhouse sort of thing? Because it looks like the clubhouse probably sat back a bit. So I didn't know if that little building sits by the curbside, if that was part of that parcel or it's separate parcel, separate ownership, totally different business.
It's on that parcel. It was the old Villa Spirits liquor store on the first floor.
Okay.
And then this goes back like 20 years. Where Villa Spirits is now used to be CVS. And so CVS built where CVS is located at the Four Corners. They moved out of that space, and then Villa Spirits liquor store relocated to where it is now. And I think it was an art framing type studio, artwork guys or something like that for a while.
It was an antique store, and then
Yep.
it turned into an art framing store. I once read that you can tell somebody's age by the generations of businesses in various locations, and I can go back all the way to
There
Villa
you go.
Spirits.
All right.
And
Thanks for the
the
background.
space up and back was real nice. That was Yukon Jack's for a while. That was a great little restaurant. But I guess they kind of let that go, and now it's in pretty rough shape.
Well, the other gem I guess I heard about recently, which was a local treasure, the Depot restaurant. I guess
Oh,
that was,
yes.
Yeah.
yeah. So I whenever I've heard about that, people get like little mist in their eye talking about what a local treasure it was, and gone but not forgotten, I guess.
There you go.
Yeah, it was nice.
Well, you want to talk about gone and mist in their eyes, the Village Treat's another one.
Kathy Johns.
Ignorance is bliss, guys. Learn something.
Lesson.
Yeah, well, I guess because I was describing like, oh, I wish Mansfield had a play. I'm kind of like found myself, I guess, describing what the Depot was, and somebody said, oh, we had that. We had it for decades, and then it burned down. But sorry. to derail the
Cynthia, anything else with the housing?
I don't think so.
All right. So then I guess we'll move into our discussion items. First on the agenda for that would be an update from the governance subcommittee, and then we'll do the business and outreach subcommittee. So I don't know if Lane or Valessa, which one of you wants to take that, but have at it.
I can take a stab at it. I will also need Cynthia to help back me up here. So we took a look at the budget items, I guess, Cynthia, and we didn't
Yes.
really have too many changes on those, did we? Or did we have any, actually?
I don't think you had any changes.
And I don't recall what else we did. I think I think that was really the primary purpose of the meeting, but please remind me if I'm missing something vital.
Nope, that's good. Did you, any brainstorming for other members to fill any of the vacant seats?
Yes, that was one thing we talked about. Sorry, go ahead.
Brian Coleman, who is the new Republican council member, has talked to me about being on this commission. Brian does the appointments. We're thinking about putting him on as an ex officio council member, but we have to Brian wants to figure out whether he makes that appointment or the council does.
And actually, Tony, late breaking news, I got confirmation from Linda earlier today. I think it was this afternoon anyway, but in kind of back-to-back meetings, but it looks like it is the council that selects or places its own members for the ex officio role, which would make sense to me. That's kind of what I figured. So we're adding it to the agenda for the council to tend to that on Monday.
Good, thank you.
Would
So
that be
we'll-
filling Ben's spot?
Well,
Right. He'll replace Ben. Ben indicated that various other commitments he has is going to have like a standing conflict for Thursdays, I think. So
Okay.
On the governance subcommittee, other than that, we also, I mostly just asked questions about the Four Towns Initiative and the combined restaurant week, which I'm excited about. And also, I was curious about whether there's a residence requirement for new members, which Cynthia sorted out.
And I mentioned this to Cynthia, if you guys come up with people who are interested in joining the EDC, I'm happy to sit down and have a coffee with them and kind of explain it to them. That was sort of what John had done in the past. I don't need to. If you guys find people that are excited about it and want to join, that's fine with me. But if you want me to give them the once over, once you identify who they are, I'm happy to do that if that helps. All right. So Business Outreach Support and Outreach Subcommittee also met. I don't know if Kristen or Shiaku want to take a stab at summarizing it, or I can do that if neither of them want to. They're both on mute. I'll start and then they can kick in whatever I forget. But we did meet.
Actually, I've omitted myself, but I want you to go ahead if that's okay with you.
Sure. So we met to discuss action items. We didn't change many of our priorities as we had talked about in the last meeting. We kind of left the priorities the same. But in terms of action items, we reviewed the questionnaire for the business visitation surveys. We decided we were going to narrow that down in scope and try to make it a little bit shorter. And so I'm reworking that. Cynthia has Kathleen working on getting a list of all the businesses in town together, which we'll hopefully get by the end of this week or beginning of next. And then we're going to start identifying which businesses to go to first. And we will begin those business visits, which I think is very, very exciting. We also talked about ways to get in touch with the business community, whether that's email or phone or mail or social media. That's a big piece of the survey as well, trying to find out what's the best way to stay in touch with the groups. And then we talked a lot about different types of content and programming we can help distribute, help support our resident businesses. So, Shaka, did I get most of it?
Yeah, he did get most of it, but we also emphasized the basic challenges that small businesses have, such as funding, marketing, and streamlining the supply chain system. For funding, Cynthia mentioned a number of, I think it was a business center or something. Yeah. Yep. And we also will be exploring the small business administration because federal funding can also help. And we recall that Tony promised some money.
That's right, Tony?
The council has scheduled or is in the process of scheduling a special meeting in early February to discuss how we distribute the ARPA money. There is a real interest in getting it out into the community, and Ryan has proposed a significant amount of money to go into businesses, but we're just trying to develop some kind of a program to do that that makes sense. And Ryan, maybe you want to say more about that.
I mean, I think in summary, you hit the nail on the head. Right now, my recommendations, so we're getting $7.5 million overall. And, my initial recommendation was for 300,000 of that to go directly to local businesses. Cynthia has been very helpful, kind of trying to help formulate some initial criteria, guidelines we might use as a framework for evaluating and scoring, if you will, different requests for funding, so that there's always a concern. I mean, you hope everybody's a good actor and they make a legitimate case for their need, whether that need is recovering from a direct economic harm the pandemic caused, or maybe it wasn't an a direct harm in the sense that they lost a customer base or had to lay off staff, but maybe they even had to just delay the launch of a new business that they had everything lined up for. And so that's the sort of an indirect harm. It's foregone, growth that, they had to suffer a delay. So we're going to be, trying to come up with a scheme for that. It's about $300,000. And as the mayor said, the council hasn't really, weighed in and started really doing its formal deliberation on this. So it's possible additional monies could be directed for that purpose. So that particular pot could go up or could go down. And then also indirectly, but relevant enough, I want to mention that recommendations also included $75,000 to promote the arts with a particular eye towards public art. And so, that again has implications for commercial and residential development, because we're trying to improve through art our street appeal and how welcoming we are to new investment. So and that's about $75,000. It's 1% of our overall 7.5 million. So so basically at a minimum right now, we're talking about 375,000 to try to infuse into local businesses and the arts.
Great, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Has there been any talk, Ryan, of doing some type of matching where like if a business applies for money from town, they would also have to put up some of their own?
Yeah, no, and that's actually a good point. So I mean, no decisions made and no official recommendations, kind of furnished from me to the council yet, but that's certainly something I want to discuss because, again, I'm not saying that we'll be overrun with, frivolous requests, but I think, it helps, assuming that there is going to be a lot of demand, a lot of requests once this, gets advertised, it would help, I think, help us target maybe the more serious requests if a business shows it has skin in the game and willing to, and what that match is in terms of a percentage, that's obviously would be up for debate as well. But I do think that there's certainly a lot of reasonable arguments that could be made that would say that would help us target those, investments, if you will, in the right areas.
Great, wonderful.
Can I just say something about that?
Mhm.
Since this is supposed to be helping businesses that probably have suffered because of the prolonged pandemic, I don't think we should insist so much on their being able to provide something to match something. We don't know how badly they have suffered, because that is almost like what the banks do. Okay, if you bring this percentage, I match this percentage. Or if we must do that, then we can make it in such a way that it is very little. I think the most important thing is for us to investigate to ensure that those who are applying actually need the funding.
Steve, it's off this particular topic, and there might have been a better place, maybe under communications or something I could offer this, but just so I don't forget, I want to just throw out there now. And I think Cynthia may have already told you this anyway, in an earlier, maybe one-on-one conversation, but I want the commission to know that another way we're trying to help local businesses right now, and in particular, our grocers, of which there are two major ones, but we also would include Dollar General and the Little Asia Market up at the Four Corners in that category. But we did a test kit, COVID-19 rapid test kit distribution. It was part of a second allocation of test kits that the town received from the state. And so we did our first distribution in sort of a general public mass distribution format, which was a success. We got them all out, and we certainly had a lot of demand for them. But when the second allocation was made, we heeded the guidance from the state, which really emphasized distributions to vulnerable populations. And then we added to that kind of targeted members of our business community. And we thought that the grocery stores and the food establishments really were the place to start, because we need them to serve our public. And if COVID-19 runs through a grocery store, runs through a kitchen, and a place has to shut down, that's a vital service and life supporting food that place isn't providing somebody. So we there are a healthy number of restaurants alone, and we didn't have enough test kits to give all of them. We want to give each one at least 10 test kits. So we did a random sampling with the partnership's help. We identified basically a universe of, is it about 50 or so restaurants, Cynthia, that we found that based on the criteria we selected, which was we wanted it to be open 5 days a week. We wanted to make sure it was still open now, not closed because the students aren't here, you know, so that businesses that are restaurants that are operating while the pandemic sort of at its zenith, that we're helping them, and 5 or more employees too. So based on those criteria, it was like 50 or so food establishments we identified, did a random sampling of 16, gave each of those 16 10, so that was 160 kits. And now we actually just got a couple 100 more kits from the school, some test kits that the school hasn't used, and we're in the process of distributing them to another 16 restaurants. And so word on the street is that's been pretty well received. You know, it's obviously not going to solve the world's problems, but probably more symbolic value than anything else, perhaps. But we definitely want to send the signal to our business community that the town cares about them and wants to do at least a little bit to help them through this incredibly difficult time.
Yeah, Ray and Tony, thank you so much. Is this being done by the council or do we have a committee? If we have a committee, is the EDC represented in that committee?
So it's not a, I would say it's sort of an ad hoc working group that's combined of a few different players. Obviously our hey there, little guy or girl. We have our health district, we have our emergency management director and his team, emergency services. Obviously, we've been leaning on the partnership. The partnership was sort of our voice in this for the business community. And so it's sort of a staff level working group, if you will, Shaka.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to include a member of our EDC? Because we are interested in this sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the landscape for, like, say, the test kit distribution in particular, you know, now that the federal government's launched its program where people can order whatever it is, four kits for their household. And then, you know, the changes that have been made in terms of insurance covering the cost of test kits you'd pick up at your local CVS or Walgreens or whatever. So I don't know how much more movement there'll be, not saying there won't be, but how much more sort of town level distribution there will be. It seems that it's, you know, it's kind of being taken over by federal level. But I appreciate your point, and it's certainly something we can explore if and when there's more distributions to be made.
And also with regard, sorry, Tony, and also with regard to the distribution of funds, because that is very relevant to economic development. Even if it's just our committee chair, Steve, even if it's just Steve or maybe one person joining you, so we can make an input into that.
No, I think as far as the ARPA funds go, you know, again, want to make sure that there's support from the council for the concept before we get too into the specifics of you know, forming a working group or committee to kind of make decisions. Okay. But yes, I think there's support for, you know, broad stakeholder engagement in that.
Okay, thank you.
And remember also that whenever we have a formal meeting, there's always opportunity for public comments, so you don't have to be on the committee to have an input.
Okay, thank you.
Great, okay. So I think that covers our discussion item A, update from the subcommittees. Unless there's anything I'm forgetting, Cynthia, we're pretty good on that? Great,
Yes,
okay.
yeah, I think you covered everything.
We've left on the agenda, sort of as a placeholder, any additional changes to the town economic development website in case anybody has any thoughts since our last meeting. So if anyone's given any thought and wants to pass anything along through Cynthia to Kathleen, now would be the time to do so. Okie dokie.
Sorry, Steve. There was, maybe it was the first meeting I joined, there was discussion of somebody taking pictures of Mansfield or having more stock photos, and that would be my one thing, is more visually interesting content.
Yeah, your timing is good, Valessa. I'm sorry, Steve, I just jumped right in. So Milton Levin, who some of you may know, Milton's got a drone business and a photography business. He also is a researcher at UConn. So we hired him with some of the marketing money, the economic development marketing money, to take some winter photos, because we were really lacking in those. So he's got some good photos. I don't think we have them up yet. But yeah, we are really building that stock of photos.
Awesome. Okay, we have included our board packet, our 2022 priorities list, which we've kind of gone back and forth on a few times. If anybody has any further edits, now would be a good time to bring that up. I think we've kind of gone back and forth on that, and we've probably nailed that down as much as it needs to be, but if anybody else has any thoughts, now's the time. Hearing none, we'll move on to our budget priorities. Cynthia, do you want to give us a quick rundown on these?
Sure, yeah, I can do that, Steve. So as Lane said, this is part of the governance duties. So they did look at this and Valesa and Lane and didn't make any changes, but let me run through it. So a lot of it will seem similar to those of you who have been on the EDC for a while. So the first section is on economic development staffing. So the request is for, and these requests have gone into Ryan generally through Linda's planning budget. So as capital budgets, and so those have been submitted last week or this week. So this is 40,000 to continue the consulting agreement with the partnership and the town for economic development services. We're in the second installment of a 3-year pilot agreement, which would end on June 30th, 2023, unless it gets extended for a third time. So I've listed, what we're continuing to do, a couple of the things that we've talked about here, getting the website up to date, the business visits, coordinating with UConn, and we'll talk about, Tony and Steve can give an update on the latest meeting on the UConn Town Framework. So that's a little bit on what we're doing as far as economic development. And we also listed our accomplishments over the past year. And then, and I think I mentioned at the last meeting, we do have out on the street, essentially using this funding is for an administrative assistant. So we have a couple of resumes that have come in. I believe the first week in February is when we're hoping to do interviews. So that's an update there. And then continuing the 50,000 for the implementation of the positioning and marketing development plan, the town's plan from a couple of years ago. We have a promotional plan. We are bringing on a media consultant to help us to promote Mansfield. That's a piece of that chunk of change. It does mention more photography on there, to Alessa's point, more professional photography. Also trying to finalize the community calendar for the town website, distributing the Explore Our Town guides, and we're going to do some new rack cards that would fit into some places where the larger brochures don't fit very well. And we're also working with Margaret and other departments on a town-wide event in this spring, which will probably focus on sustainability. So we're really excited about that. We have human services, youth services, Ginny in public works, our sustainability guru. So we're excited about that. It's a really big team effort. And then the last piece, which is kind of in a continuing piece of Linda's budget, is supporting the Taste of Mansfield. We're going to talk about the Hero campaign, I think, in a few minutes, but continuing the work to really promote local foods in Mansfield. And they spent a lot of their time through the Department of Human Services on the Farms to Families grants, which was very successful, trying to get nutritious food to families that normally don't have access. And they received an Awesome Family Foundation to continue that pilot program throughout 2023. So that was exciting. And I just also will mention, it's not part of the direct proposed request from the EDC, but We are looking for funding to fund well, doing it as a capital project for a couple of years, but to fund the signage plan that hopefully will be completed later this year. We've hired a consultant team to put together that plan. We had a kickoff meeting. We'll hope to meet with stakeholders the end of this month. So that's implementing the signage and wayfinding plan, which is another marketing tool and also great, for our visitors and even our residents to have better signage, more consistent signage. And it's a little bit of a hodgepodge right now.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the overview. That definitely helps refresh it in all our minds, and I'm glad that Valessa and Lane were able to go through that with you. And sounds great. And anybody have any comments briefly before we move on?
Cynthia, can you explain the signage then?
Yeah, so part of the positioning and marketing plan that the town put together a couple of years ago, one of the implementation projects was to create comprehensive signage throughout the town. So similar to what UConn's done, I think about a year and a half ago, probably almost 2 years ago now, they did a whole sign program, and they have very consistent signage. So this would be Chiaco directional signage. It would be entryway signage to some of Mansfield's, all of its buildings. So town hall, senior center, library, et cetera, park signage. So it's really covers a wide gamut of the different signage that we would have in the community.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Cynthia?
Yes.
It would be really nice if somewhere there was a big sign that said stores is in Mansfield. I mean, just,
I agree. Yeah, that's, Tony, yeah, that's tough.
I mean, I'm serious about that because Mansfield is not known outside of this community, and stores is. I have to keep saying it over and over again. So it might be, welcome to Mansfield, including stores.
And UConn basketball is here too.
I know it sounds like a joke, but I am serious about it.
I support you. I support you.
Well, as a sidebar to that, it was a benign enough comment, but we all kind of laughed on the panel when we were interviewing candidates for the Parks and Rec director position. One of the folks that we spoke with in one of the rounds, was talking about how much they liked Mansfield and how the proximity to stores was one of its real advantages. So, yeah.
That's nice. And I tell them I'm from Mansfield, and everybody's wondering where is Mansfield. I said UConn basketball. And they, that's where you are from.
I mean,
Isn't that the truth?
If we want to be a regional destination and people think they're coming to stores, they're not going to think about looking up Mansfield businesses.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly good point, Tony. I think that's something maybe Margaret and I and others can really brainstorm about. How do we convey that in the appropriate way, while maintaining the integrity of the Mansfield name too. So it's a tough one. I agree. I don't.
We can ask UConn's permission to put some of their legendary photos. I mean, UConn is located in Mansfield, so why would they say no? We can just request, so when people are looking at photos about Mansfield, they will see photos about UConn, because that's what most people outside Mansfield relate to.
But I think it's not enough. It's not enough to talk about UConn. Everybody's had this experience. You go somewhere else and you say, I'm from Mansfield, and they say, where's that? And I say, do you follow UConn? Do you follow college basketball? Yeah. And then they say, oh yeah. But even if you're a parent and you're coming up to see your kids, you may be looking to see where the restaurants are and stores and miss half of them because they're listed under Mansfield.
I know. I just mentioned including some photos about UConn. just for people to connect, to make that connection. And then they might be interested in seeing other things about Mansfield. We can't run away from that. The popularity of stores is so much that we have to relate it to Mansfield in a way that people can connect.
You know, when the post office in Stores was named, Mansfield decided to call the town Stores Mansfield in order to preserve the Mansfield name. But when Yukon had its own post office and zip code, they just went plain Stores. So they didn't.
Oh. Okay.
So that makes it worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a tricky one. I'm not sure what the easy solution is, but honestly, I think the gateway signage is a big help because when you're driving your kid in, you come off 84 up 195 and you get to that big Mansfield sign, you see that before you see Yukon, and it's impressive, and it lets people know we've gotten to Mansfield and I'm close to campus now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that should help. That should help too.
yeah, it's not the only thing to do, but I think it was a good first step.
Yeah.
Cynthia, do you want to enlighten us with the Taste of Mansfield Hero initiative?
Sure. Yeah, so this is one that was on the back burner that made its way up to the front burner. This was something that former EDC member Ben Wiles was really interested in. How do we recognize and what we've now defined as producers, sellers, or communicators / educators who really promote communicating through local food. And so working with a staff team at the town, Jennifer Kaufman, Dorothy Duvall, and Jiff Martin at the Yukon Extension, and some other folks, Stephanie at Food Services for the Schools, we developed this award, and we have the criteria that is listed here. Wanted to be pretty succinct about criteria. And then what we had thought would be great would be for the EDC and the Ag Committee, the Town Ag Committee, to meet on a yearly basis and evaluate and choose candidates for the Taste of Mansfield initiative. And then I kind of went through what the next steps are to do that. The Ag Committee reviewed this outline on January 11th, and Jennifer told me they didn't have any changes. She said they were excited about it. I think people already have some people in mind for this award. So it's just a nice way to recognize what folks are doing in town on a yearly basis. And it's a nice, I think, joint thing to do with the Town Ag Committee. So I wanted to get your feedback / blessing, comments, questions about this initiative.
Who was it last year?
This is the first time. This is the first
Oh,
time
this is
we do it,
first time.
Melissa. Yes, I'm sorry. I should have said that. Yep, this would be the first time.
Cool. Okay.
I have a question. Farms are not likely to change hands very often. What happens if the leader in the community is always the same 3 people? Do we just keep giving them the awards, or?
I think we've tried to set it up, Tony, so it's flexible. There may not be anyone that meets that criteria for that particular year. We've had that have a couple of times with like Volunteer of the Year for the partnership.
Yeah.
I don't think people should feel obligated to give it out just to give for the sake of giving it out. And then we would also identify it with a year. So, it would be hero from 2022 winner. So I don't think that, unless somebody, excuse me, does something above and beyond, for several years in a row, that it would be the same person.
I can imagine Jiff being the winner year after year.
Yeah, or Stephanie with the schools. I mean, there's definitely people that, with all the work she's done to bring in local food. I mean, there's definitely candidates out there right now.
Can we maybe have Mansfield heroes from different sectors, from agriculture, from restaurants from, different, and we can restrict it that, if you earn the award this year, next year, someone else has to be the awardee.
So are you talking, Chiako, about different categories like
Yeah.
businesses and?
Different categories, and at the same time, we have to limit the number of times one person earns it, at least in 5 years, so it's not the same person over and over again.
Yeah, I don't know, Steve, if you want to address that. I mean, we've talked about that for the downtown. We've also, and it's been a while, is that we have recommended, and I think Chiako, you were on the EDC then, we have recommended to the Wyndham Chamber a nominee for Mansfield Business of the Year. I don't think they did it last year with the pandemic, and I haven't heard anything lately, but the EDC's definitely done that about 3 or 4 times, I think.
Yeah, for a general business of the year, I think the nice thing with what this Taste of Mansfield Hero Initiative has is you have kind of different categories. So, whether they're growing the food or selling the food or educating other people about that, I think it kind of gives you a little bit wider base to pull from, which will help. So if you say, well, this year we're only going to have, one of these categories, then maybe you don't have 3 recipients, maybe you have 2, or maybe you have 1.
I think the more recipients we have, the more motivational it will be. Because other people would see it as a possibility instead of just giving it to the most established businesses in the town. But if we make it into categories, then other people will. We can have one main person or business, but I think part of the reason for this, I'm assuming, is to motivate businesses. And that would be more motivational.
I don't think this award is for a general business, though. It's very specific. It really does grow out of the funding for the Taste of Mansfield.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but even for that, growing the food, using them in restaurants should be another thing we should consider. So we can still widen the scope. And
Are we supposed to be nominating businesses for this, Cynthia, or is that going to come from the team or from other groups?
Yeah, I think, the goal is to, if you look under, maybe that's where you are, Steve, under next steps, under D, it would be kind of the staff team, the Ag Committee, EDC would request, nominations from the Board of Ed, Sustainability Committee, local businesses, among others.
Okay.
So we would be looking for our peers to provide some nominees. And then the EDC would be involved in the decision-making with the Ag Committee.
Great, okay.
Okay. And if we do this, we can also extend this to other areas of businesses. I think it's a very good idea.
Yep.
I think Mansfield's primary source of way of recognizing businesses in general has been through the chamber. I remember a couple of times going to chamber annual meetings in order to congratulate the Mansfield winner. And since those recommendations do come out of the EDC, I don't know if we need to, do you want to create another recognition or another category of recognition?
If they start picking it back up again, I think that's fine. But if they've I don't think they've done it for the last 2 years, probably because of the pandemic. And if it's one of those things that dies because of the pandemic, maybe it's something we should resurrect in the future.
Yeah, and I think the Chamber of Commerce is a different entity. We really have no say about what they do. But if we want to motivate our businesses, we can organize something like that. It should not affect the Chamber of Commerce activities. We can also do that to motivate our businesses.
They asked us for for the nominee for Mansfield. So it was our pick.
Yeah, but for example, we're suggesting we have different categories, but they're just talking about one person, one business, which we can't control. They ask us for who to submit. Whereas if we were organizing it, if it was coming from us, we will have different objectives in mind. For example,
Okay.
yeah, do we want to encourage farmers? Do we want to encourage restaurants? Do we want to encourage retailers? You know, that kind of thing. I think they all should be encouraged.
Okay. We'll start with this one and then kind of
Yeah.
learn as we go and see what other ones we can expand to.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not talking about today, but you know, it should be a good plan. You know.
Cynthia, is there anything you need from us tonight with regards to this action item, or are we good?
No, I think we're good. We, Taste of Mansfield meets it, I think it's the first Monday of the month, so we'll meet soon but I'll also let the team know that you all looked at it and we'll start moving forward.
Great.
Stay tuned for looking at some nominees.
All right, last thing on our discussion items is the Yukon Town Framework collaboration, and Ryan and Tony and I were on the last call, which was earlier this week. I don't know if either of you guys would like to say anything about that or your thoughts on where we're going.
I guess, you know, I would just offer, you know, it was largely kind of getting the new interim president, Rudenka, kind of up to speed as she'd attended, I think, one of the framework meetings, maybe just the most recent one, before the announcement that President Agwanobi was cycling out. And so we, you know, felt, I'll speak for myself, but I think it's the sentiment of the group for the town. You know, it's a little bit of a shot in the gut, wind out of the sails, whatever you want to say, because I think Linda Painter, when I was talking with her recently, put it probably best. You know, she's worked for the town 10 years and she had never had a meeting, been involved in a sort of staff to staff meeting with the Yukon president all that time. And she had 3 or 4, whatever it was, meetings with President Agwanobi. So there was this sense of, you know, really elevating the town's status, and we're taking you seriously and you're a partner in this, and we're having those conversations. And then, you know, he's obviously now leaving. And so there's just a lot of uncertainty about what is that going to mean, you know, for the next president. Obviously, what does it mean in the interim, but what does it mean, you know, looking beyond, since they're launching their national search now for a permanent president, what's that going to mean for all this momentum and goodwill and collaboration we've built? So I don't know if anybody else has a different take, though.
Well, my only take was I did not sense any immediate hostility to these plans. I didn't sense any hesitation. She was forthcoming and willing to learn and to give ideas. She doesn't know very much at all about Mansfield as a government or a business organization, so I think that we have a lot to teach her. But I'm also thinking that maybe it's time for us to reactivate some of our political ties to the board.
Yeah, we certainly would love to see, you know, the next president, or at least those making the decisions on the next president, elevate the importance of some sort of background or experience, like with their host community, you know, demonstrate a track record of collaborative relationships with their municipal government, with economic development in their, you know, local community. You know, obviously, at a minimum, you hope to have somebody who, even if they don't have a lot of personal experience with that, they're very open to the idea and want to do it. But certainly having somebody who's actually done it would be a real home run. And I don't think we've seen that in recent times.
I
Yeah,
think you're going to see it if you see it in interactions in larger cities. You know, a university in an urban area where they contributed to economic development. I mean, one of the really interesting things was at one point there were a number of economic opportunity zones that were moving very quickly to make plans, and they needed educational participation. and almost every branch campus signed on immediately without hesitation, and the main campus did not. So I don't know whether that was just because the leaders at the branches are more engaged in their communities than the mothership is. But it was something I really took note of, and I think we need to make sure that the search committee and also the instruction that's given to our new interim puts this at the top of the agenda, or somewhere on the agenda anyway.
I think it's up to us to make that, emphasize the importance of that. I remember a few years ago when we were complaining about this, we decided to actually reach out to them. And some of them came to the meetings we organized. Cynthia, right?
Yes, yep. And some of those subcommittees, yeah, the original subcommittees, there was definitely some work with the university.
Yeah.
So
We
those
reached out-
relationships are still in place, which is a good thing. I think they are. Maybe it's just at a staff level, but there's definitely relationships there from those meetings that are still in place.
Yeah, and I think what Tony said is important. Now they are searching for a new president. We could also reach out and emphasize the importance of UConn's role in economic development in this area. But most importantly, when the president assumes office, we should reach out. I kept emphasizing it that we should reach out. When a new president comes, he has so many things he wants to do for the university. So taking care of the town where they reside might not be their priority, but we need them. We have to reach out so they know that we need them. And if we do that, I'm sure they will respond.
Chaco, I assure you that it is absolutely very high on our agenda. We have been working very hard to get these connections going. And one of the signs of the success is that this committee that we have been working with to start a new framework on economic development, the fact that it exists at all is a direct result of the work that we have done in reaching the university.
Yeah.
I mean,
thank you.
we work not only with the university, but with the governor's office and with the board of trustees.
It's very important.
We have those connections, and we will certainly use them.
Yeah, it's very important because they all want. I know that I'm at Easton, and I know our president wants to do the same. But I'm sure if nobody goes to pressure her or ask for things, she'll probably focus on the priorities within the campus.
Don't worry, we are very much aware of this, and we are working very closely to deal with it. You don't need. This is one where we're right on the same page with you.
Okay, thank you so much. It's a lot of work, but it needs to be done.
Next on our agenda is communications. Is there anything else we want to chat about regarding communications? All right. Anything for future meeting agendas? All right. Well, then I think that brings us to adjournment. So everyone, thank you so much for coming tonight. If you have anything else you need to bring up, now is the time. Otherwise, we'll say thank you and have a great evening. I guess we need a motion to adjourn. So who wants to make the motion?
Okay, I second them.
All right, we'll give Shiaku the motion. Who wants to?
I'll
Alexa?
second it.
All right, thanks. All those in favor? All right.
Bye.
Good evening.
All right, have a great evening, everybody.
See y'all.
Bye-bye.